Maya Bennett moved into the old Hargrove Street apartment hoping for peace after a difficult chapter in her life. The building was quiet, slightly worn, but felt stable enough to rebuild her routine. The only thing that stood out was the top-floor apartment with no number on its door. The manager avoided explaining it properly, only saying it was private and not to worry about it. That night, however, Maya heard footsteps above her ceiling. Slow, steady footsteps pacing back and forth with unnatural timing. At first she blamed the old structure, but the sound returned every night at the exact same hours. When an elderly neighbor warned her never to ask about the upstairs unit, Maya began to understand something was wrong in the building, something everyone else was pretending not to notice. The footsteps grew more precise over time, always starting and stopping at the exact same moments. Maya's sleep disappeared as the rhythm above her became part of her nights. She eventually went to the top floor, standing outside the unmarked grey door. The hallway felt colder than anywhere else in the building. Behind the door she heard faint overlapping whispers, like multiple voices trapped in the same space. Before she could knock, the whispers stopped completely, as if they knew she was there. Later, she learned about Victor Hale, a former tenant who had died alone in that same apartment years ago. His body had been undiscovered for weeks. But if that apartment had truly been empty since then, Maya couldn't explain what she had been hearing every night above her head. Maya eventually confronted the door directly. When she knocked, there was silence at first, then slow movement from inside. The door opened slightly, held by a chain. Through the narrow gap she saw a pale eye watching her without blinking. A weak voice told her to leave, to go downstairs immediately. Something about it felt wrong, like the voice hadn't been used in a long time. The door closed again without explanation. The next day, the building manager insisted the apartment was empty and had been for over a year. Maya realized she may have been speaking to someone who officially didn't exist. The manager unlocked the apartment to prove his point. Inside, the space was completely empty, stripped of furniture and life. Dust covered everything, and the air felt stale and unused. But in the middle of the floor were fresh barefoot footprints moving across the dust as if someone had just been there. There were no hiding places, no open windows, no explanation for the prints. The manager panicked and locked the door again. That night, the footsteps returned above Maya's apartment, continuing as if nothing had changed. Whatever was upstairs was still there, and it was still moving. Soon after, Maya began finding old photographs outside her door. One showed the building from years ago, with a figure standing in the upstairs window staring out. Written on the back were the words "He never left." More images followed, each more disturbing than the last, showing different people connected to the apartment. The building's history began to feel less like the past and more like something still happening. Maya realized the footsteps were not random, and whatever occupied that top floor had been present far longer than anyone wanted to admit. After the footprints incident, Maya tried to convince herself it was all just an old building settling and her mind filling in gaps. But the apartment refused to let her think that way. The strange footsteps continued above her ceiling every night, always precise, always repeating the same pattern. Then came the photographs. One appeared under her door showing the building from years ago, with a figure staring from an upstairs window. Another followed soon after, showing people she didn't recognize, all somehow connected to apartment 4C. Each image felt like a piece of a story she was never meant to see. The final message written on one of them was simple and chilling: "He never left." From that moment, Maya stopped feeling like she was living in an apartment building and started feeling like she was inside something that was still happening. Unable to ignore it any longer, Maya went back to the top floor. The hallway felt heavier than before, almost like the air itself had thickened. She reached the unmarked door again, but this time it felt different, as if it recognized her presence. Inside, she found a hidden gap in the wall behind old peeling wallpaper. What she discovered was not just a space, but a sealed-off alcove filled with decay and silence. Inside were old belongings, forgotten objects, and something that felt disturbingly personal. The deeper she looked, the more it felt like the apartment had been hiding not just a person, but evidence of something that was never supposed to be uncovered. And then she heard it again: footsteps. Not above her this time, but inside the room itself. The footsteps grew closer, slow and wet, echoing through the hollow space of the hidden room. Maya froze as the flashlight beam trembled across the walls. Something moved in the darkness where there should have been nothing. A shape formed slowly, too tall, too still, like it was remembering how to exist. The air became cold in a way that didn't feel natural. Behind her, the entrance to the alcove seemed smaller, like it was closing in. Then came a voice, soft and broken, calling her name without certainty, as if it hadn't spoken in years. Maya ran, but the apartment no longer felt like a straight path. Every hallway seemed slightly different, longer than before, bending in ways that didn't make sense. Whatever lived upstairs was no longer staying upstairs after that night. The building was sealed and investigated, but nothing was ever fully explained. The hidden room was found empty, the evidence gone, and apartment 4C was declared uninhabitable. Maya moved away, but the experience never left her. Even in her new home, silence at night felt suspicious, as if something might begin again at any moment. Sometimes, just before sleep, she still hears it faintly, the same slow footsteps, perfectly timed, moving across a floor that shouldn't exist above her anymore. The building was supposed to be empty. The apartment was supposed to be sealed. But Maya learned the hardest truth of all: some places don't stay empty just because people leave them.